Hi, and welcome to the Notepad Show. In today's episode, we're going to be tackling a subject matter that I've discussed twice already on the channel. That's rendering oceans with Solaris and Renderman. This video is pretty much going to be the definitive video for that subject matter. This video is based on a tutorial that I will include in the link. I've included it in the link in the other videos as well, made by Sheperd, and it just goes over how to create ocean spectrum, specifically very similar to the one we're going to be that we created in this video. And then right here in the last section, always the last section in Houdini tutorials, the rendering. Here he's using Karma. We are going to be using Renderman, of course. So why don't we get started? I'll show some of the differences right now over the other videos. So in the other videos, the main video, the first one I ever posted, we were driving. We were taking spectrum data, bringing it into Solaris, and using MaterialX as our shading network to get the render to render in Renderman. That's a mouthful. And we could only do it via RIS. XPU was not supported. Then I did another video, which I did for just convenience, because some people might want to do displacement at the geo level rather than at render time, like in the first video. And that second video, not the greatest way to do oceans, but it will allow you to get some nice looking oceans at the expense of huge amounts of data. So you're taking a grid that is highly subdivided and you are applying a displacement to that grid to drive at the geo level to drive oceans. And it becomes problematic, one, when you're doing LookDev and you got to render and render and render. And it's just or I should say, you have to write out the displacement all the time. And it's just a pain. But I wanted to include it, so I did. It's a very short video. It's like 6 minutes long. The third video, this video, is we are still going to be doing displacement of spectrum at render time, but we're still going to bring it into Solaris, but we are going to be using LAMA, PxrSurface, XPU, RIS, whatever we want, and render in Renderman. This will be able to be used natively in Renderman, and it will be the first time I've ever encountered the ability to do so. So why don't we get started? I'm going to pop open Renderman and Houdini. Here we go. And I should say I'm in Solaris, sorry. And let me bring up the old tutorial. Okay. So in the old tutorial, it was pretty self-explanatory. Let the file load. Here we go. I'm going to change the quality to 5. We went over all these settings here in that video, and I can run through them really quickly again. We have an ocean procedural. This is a LOP that is required along with the preview procedural to do previewing in the viewport. This node right here is not required for end result batch rendering. It is only required to see the results in the Hydra delegate. So we have this ocean procedural, and we are feeding it in spectrum data, both spectrum and spectrum mask. I remember in the other video, I always called it spectrum. And this is the network that we're basing it on. And we cached out spectra data, and we cache out a mask. And this drove our ocean look right here. So we read in that data. We also have a grid that is being displaced at render time. That's what made it so special. And it was controlled, the quality of the viewport rendering is controlled here at viewport quality. The higher, the more quality you have. The more towards 1, you have better dicing. And the more towards 0, you have less quality. So if I go to 1, you'll see that in the viewport, it's less detailed. I'll go back to 5. These are dicing settings, and these are related to the camera. So as you can see, we're doing some dicing. Okay, the camera's right here. And based on the camera's frustum, we are only dicing where they're inside the frustum of the camera. So it is very, very important that you define the camera in the Renderman render settings. That's highly, highly important. We have a light, we have, here's the camera. I brought in the camera from SOP in Houdini. Okay. And that was pretty much it. And we have, this is where you tell it what shader to use. And by default, Ocean Procedural wants to use MaterialX. And it's intended to be used with Karma. Well, this video is going to show we don't need MaterialX any longer, and we can absolutely 100% use Renderman. I'm going to render this just so you see, that it works, but it's only going to work in RIS. Okay? It's not going to work in XPU. And that's a huge, disadvantage. This Ocean video I did was about 8 months ago, prior to 27 coming out. And a lot has changed in 27 when it comes to XPU. So we want to take advantage of all the hardware that we have available in our machines. So I revisited this scene and found a way to render oceans natively in Renderman. So without further ado, I just so you know, I put down a edit. In the old way, you would put down an edit material lop, and you would assign the MaterialX Ocean Surface, and then you would have to go in here, you'd have to go inside the subnetwork, and you would have to go into this MTLX image, and you would have had to convert this. It would be an EXR here, but you would have to convert it to TEX to get it to render and set the color space to raw. But it just was a pain. And then you had to use the MaterialX network node parameters. And some people are just not familiar with them like they are with LAMA or PxrSurface. So it just wasn't that great. Well, that all changes now. So I'm going to tell you how easy it is right here, right now, in real time. And then I'm going to open up a scene and we're going to dive a little bit deeper into LAMA and some of the parameters that can control or influence an ocean. Okay? First thing I'm going to do, get rid of that edit material lop. We are going to create a material library, and we're going to simply attach it to the ocean spectrum. I'm going to give it a unique name, so I'm going to call it Ocean Mat Lib. Okay. I'm going to double click. I'm going to create a Hydra delegate. This is a Renderman Hydra delegate. I'm going to name it Ocean Shader. Okay. And I can make a PxrSurface. I can make a LAMA. material. In this case, I'm going to be making a LAMA material. I just find that it's a little bit easier to control the look and feel of an ocean, so I'm using it. You could use PxrSurface. There's no reason you couldn't. Okay. I'm going to put down a LAMA dielectric because we are making, well, a dielectric water. Okay. Now, in the surface, we need to uncheck opacity cached, presence cached, because that's not used in XPU. We do want to calculate opacity and interior, both. And here, we're going to change it to scientific, and we're going to set the IOR to 1.33, which is water. Not going to change any settings here. Although, in a later example, I do change the Abbey to 72. And we might as well do it here. All right. And then we are setting everything to its defaults for right now. And this is where the magic happens. You don't do anything else here. This is just a container for the shader. You go to Ocean Procedural, and it's crazy that this is. You delete the default, and you can now point to the new shader. Now, you would think that you could just simply come in and drag the shader here from the scene graph. You cannot. That does not work. You have to use the picker, the chooser. Okay? You have to use the chooser. That's vital. That's the only way it will work. Not sure why that is, but that's the way it works. And that's really all there is to getting a result. So why don't we do a render? We'll do one in RIS. Bam. We are now, we're using that ocean shader. And here's the beauty. It works in XPU as well. Okay? Doesn't look as nice. My ice shader isn't XPU compatible. I gotta work on that. It has to do with PxrFlake, and they're working on deciding whether that's something that's going to be supported in a dot release. So that's the reason that the ice or the icebergs don't look that nice in XPU. I fixed that in this other scene that I'm about to open up. That's all there is to it. All I did was I deleted the edit node. You just don't need it. In your case, if you're doing it from scratch, you're just going to have this node, and you just literally add a material library before the ocean procedural, and then point to it. All the other stuff is pretty much the same. Of course, you want to make sure that your main camera, which I'm importing here, is in the Renderman render settings, and you have an ocean procedural. I show all that in that first video. You can rewatch it again. But that's all there is to it. It's really, really, really simple. All right. I'm going to stop it. I'm going to open up another scene here. This one has a little more in it. And this is why this is, I'm going to be spending more of my time here. One of the things I didn't show in the previous tutorials was an ocean floor. We're in the middle of the ocean. You don't necessarily need a floor. And I don't need one now in this render. But in having a floor, it just opens up so much artistic LookDev. And it's just really neat. So why don't we start? We're going to only be rendering in XPU because we can. All right. I did change the lighting, so I'm using a different dome light. All right. And here's my render. Now, what I'm going to do now And I do have a floor, and I do have another object here. We're gonna sort of focus in on that object. You can sort of see the object. It's underneath the surface of the ocean, but sitting on top of the floor. So it's in between the ocean floor and the ocean surface. I'm going to move my camera, see how good I can do. Sometimes it's a challenge. And as you can see, we've got rendered with Renderman. Okay? So we have this rendering going, and we can do some LookDev if we want. And the shader is just white. It's just white text. But it's, of course, appearing blue because I have a slight blue in the LAMA shader right here, the absorption color. And I'm also not going very deep. So this absorption color is the color of the dielectric. This absorption radius is, it's telling Renderman, influence with this color blue at this depth, at 5 meters. Start really taking that blue color into account. Okay? If I go higher, it's going to allow more light to penetrate through the ocean surface. So why don't we do that? I'm going to push it up to, you know what? I'm going to push it up to 40. Really crazy. I always like changing the parameter in big ways just to see what it really does. And as you can see, it's really ignoring the absorption color now. And you definitely can see, because of doing that, I'm seeing the true color of the font here, this logo. Excuse me, logo, not font. I'm going to put the camera back, and sure enough, the ocean has, its color is being influenced, and it's being influenced by the floor. But now it's going to allow me to do some more interesting things. For instance, instead of this being a Arctic Ocean, which would be, generally very dark blue, kind of a look, I'm going to try and change this ocean to be more Caribbean-like. So I'm going to influence the color a little bit. Okay. Small increments. Okay. And I'm starting to see it. Let's see what kind of an effect that has on the logo as we dial in more settings. All right, here we go. So we are going to go to 10. So we're going to see much more influence of that color now because the radius is much lower, and there you go. So that just gives you an indicator. And if I go back to the camera, you'll see it has a little bit more influence into that color. Granted, it's an overcast day, so literally, because of the lighting that we're providing, we're also influencing the look of the ocean. Okay, so what I'd like to do now, and by the way, just we'll do it, but I'm not going to go into heavy detail on it. I could certainly change the depth of the ocean by bringing the floor down to -10. And again, that will have influence as well. Okay? And that's it. I mean, you have so many variables to choose from to do rendering with the oceans with this technique. It's super easy. It just works. And I'm so glad that this is now available to us. I've waited a long time personally to be able to render oceans with Renderman.